What's up, my Squabians? Today we are talking about the top 5 fantasy players for the 2020 NFL season. I can't wait to get into it. There are a lot of really good players that are going to score a whole lot of fantasy points, and as some of you might not be aware, I hosted a fantasy league last year for my show on Saturdays from 10 to 1 on the KGRG app, The Bolt. I was so close to winning the league, but I choked in the playoffs. I sat Julio Jones instead of Robert Woods based on the matchups that week, and had I started Julio, I would have won my entire championship because I scored the most points in the league championship week, and I lost in the round just before. So this year, hopefully I won't make such silly mistakes, and maybe once again I can have the best team in the league. We're going to talk about all that you need to know for fantasy football this year in today's video, but first, comment down below who are your top 5 fantasy players for this season in the NFL. Who are the first 5 that you would take off the board given all 5 picks? Okay, so let's get into my list. I'm going to start at number 1. So first, Christian McCaffrey. First of all, he had just shy of 2,400 scrimmage yards last season, as well as 19 touchdowns and 2 straight seasons of 100 plus receptions, including last season where he had over 1,000 yards receiving from the running back position. He just got paid to be the highest paid running back in the NFL, and deservedly so. He has a better quarterback this year than he had last year. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a major upgrade over Kyle Allen, and because of that, I have Christian McCaffrey number 1 on my list. Number 2, I go to Saquon Barkley. I think he's a phenomenal running back. I think the change of head coach is going to be interesting, and I think Joe Judge is an old school type of guy that's going to want to run the football and give the ball to his best player. He's not the guy that drafted Daniel Jones. Because of that, I think he features Saquon Barkley a whole bunch this season. I think Saquon has a phenomenal year, and because of that, I say Saquon number 2 on my list. Number 3, I go to a guy that not everyone has on their top 5, and that's Dalvin Cook. I look at this guy, and I look at this offense, and yes, they lost Kevin Stefanski, but what else they lost was Stefon Diggs was a major part of that Minnesota offense. They used him as a check down, the underneath route, while Adam Thielen is your sure-handed player that you have for third and long situations. I'd run a deep out to him and hit him on the sideline every single time, 3rd and 10 scenario, if they're in man coverage, or even if they're in the cover 3 type of defense. That's the type of scenario where you want an Adam Thielen. A Stefon Diggs is a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 kind of guy. You throw it underneath, you throw him a screen pass, you let him make a play with the ball in his hands. As well, he was an excellent run blocker for Minnesota. I see Dalvin Cook taking over some of those screen passes for Stefon Diggs now, no longer with this offense. I think there's even more of a focal point on the rushing attack and getting Dalvin Cook even more involved. They understand in Minnesota that he's arguably a top 3 running back in the NFL when fully healthy. He's extremely fast and explosive through the line of scrimmage, and because of that, he can escape from defenders like very few can in the NFL. Because of that, I have Dalvin Cook number 3 on my list. A rookie wide receiver in Justin Jefferson is not going to come in and instantly fill the role of a Stefon Diggs, and because of that, Dalvin Cook will be more of a focal point for this offense. Number 4 on my list, I go to Michael Thomas, the guy who had 1,725 receiving yards last year. Let's not forget, Michael Thomas, every single year in his career, he has improved his receptions and his receiving yards on the season. His first year in the NFL, 90 receptions for 110 yards. His second year, 100 receptions for 1,200 yards. His third year in the NFL, 125 receptions for 1,400 yards. And this past season, his best season yet, 149 receptions, just one shy of 150 for 1,725 yards. He gets better every single season. He's yet to have less than a 1,000 yard season, and because of that, I give major props to Michael Thomas. He's number 4 on my list, even though he's not a running back. Especially in PPR leagues, you have to have Michael Thomas on your roster if you have the opportunity. Now, number 5 is so difficult for me to pick. There are so many good options that I'm looking at, but the guy that I have to go with for this season specifically is Joe Mixon. I look at how this offense has improved. This is going to be the first real opportunity for Zach Taylor in Cincinnati to show the world what he wants to do offensively. Joe Mixon was a major contributor to that offense last year. This year, he's going to be an even bigger contributor, and it's going to be because some of the stress is relieved off of his shoulders by having Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and some of these names that they brought in through free agency to take that stress off. The offensive line got better. Jonah Hill is coming back. They drafted another offensive lineman in this year's draft. They put assets towards this offense, and they want to take some of the pressure off Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is another guy in his first year in the NFL, he's not going to want to take a lot of hits. What does that mean? Before the big scary guys run up to you and knock you over, you dump the ball off to the closest guy to the quarterback. Who does that happen to be? Joe Mixon. He's great at catching the football, does a phenomenal job, and that's why Joe Mixon is number 5 on my list. So to summarize my top 5 fantasy players for 2020, number 1, Christian McCaffrey, number 2, Saquon Barkley, number 3, Dalvin Cook, number 4, Michael Thomas, and number 5, Joe Mixon. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below about your top 5 fantasy players for 2020. I'm dying to hear who you guys have. There were so many big names I had to leave off this list. Right off this list, I have Austin Eckler. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. Devontae Adams is going to have a phenomenal year. Derrick Henry. I didn't even bring up Zeke. So many good names. Alvin Kamara that I'm leaving off this list. Let me know who's in your top 5 in the comment section below. As always, go Hawks.